Will the HIP42 slash your rewards by 50%, 40%, 60, 70? We don't know, but we're going to discuss why you should not worry about this.
We'll also compare the HIP42 versus the HIP44.
Also, I'm going to answer some questions that I've been reading and I'm not enjoying because these questions are not like so valid. So people are asking, why didn't Helium test all of this before start selling us these hotspots? Some are asking, the HIPs, who are creating them? It's most likely made by whales, so they can benefit the most. So let me answer all these questions, and I apologize for my voice. I'm just recovering from a sickness. And let's start by how did the Helium journey start? And I'll be very brief, just for the new people that are here and they don't know what is going on. They can defend this knowledge. So Helium was a project on a paper. What they did is they started manufacturing the OGs at a small numbers, and they started building a network or concept network, you can say so. And then they started tweaking, fixing, adding codes and all that stuff till they thought they can perfect it. Now, in principle, if you're testing all of this, there is the huge question, which is scaling. Can this network scale without breaking down? That's the unknown. They don't know that, because the only way to know is like more people deploying hotspots. And that's why you and I and all of us are still under construction. We are under construction. This is not a done project. That's one thing. Second thing, when they were testing in the concept, they didn't know they can spoof. They didn't know they can use repeaters. They didn't even think about it because they own this project. Why would I like to hack it or take advantage of it? That's why that's done by human manipulation. So please understand, like when you're on a concept project, it's different. When you want to scale, that's another challenge. And human manipulation is another challenge. And what happened later on, we know that they started selling all these OGs and they got stuck with the logistics. And what happened is they decided to outsource, Nebra, Culture, and others. Once they did that, while they were still building the Discord community, they were happy with the results. So they're building the Discord community, they're finding these projects or manufacturers, which I want to clear some of the misconception here as well. A lot of people on YouTube saying, oh, you know what? My Bobcat miner is doing way better than Nebra. Oh, you know what? My Nebra is better than SenseCap. That's most likely BS. Why? Because if you have it in a better location, definitely you will get better. So if you switch your Bobcat with your Nebra, you will see that Nebra now is doing better than Bobcat. Now also there's other factors, which is antenna, location, elevation, all that stuff, line of sight. But in principle, for you as a manufacturer to start producing or manufacturing hotspots, Helium has put certain standards and certain steps for you as a manufacturer to get approved. Once you get approved with everything, what happens is your device will be performing as much needed as any other device. And that's what you should care. Now let's move on to the Discord. So the Helium Inc. decided they're like, you know what? The Helium community, we have chosen PFG Neil, we have chosen Capcom and all these great guys to run this so we can focus on partnerships, we can focus on, the 5G and others. And therefore, it's the People's Network. That's what it stands for. Now, these HIPs are made when people inside the Discord start to complain or find some loopholes. Once you find, oh, these guys are spoofing, these guys are gaming, these are using amplifiers, these guys are doing repeaters. And once you raise that and more people talk about it, the community now are addressing it. What happens is the moderators or whoever knows how to fix this starts to play around and see if he can create a HIP. So HIPs are Helium improvement processes. And once they are, in place after they vote, it doesn't mean it does not get tested. So once they do that Helium or the HIP, they test the results. Did it do what it's supposed to do? And like the HIP15, I think something went wrong. And they're like, you know what, let's cancel. The POC version 11, they said, listen, if it's not going to work, we might go to POC 12 or we go back to POC 10. So that's how it works. It's not about a whale that wants to take advantage. It's us, we're trying to protect the network. Okay, so now let's talk about the HIP42. And I have some good research, which is an AMA with, I'll mention their names once I open the YouTube. So basically, the HIP42 is tackling one important message or issue. Some witnesses are receiving all these beacons and they're not sending any beacons. They're using repeaters or amplifiers. So 42 is just tackling this. So I had one good question, which I was hoping to find an answer, and I actually found an answer. And it's not from, a YouTuber. It's actually from the people that did this HIP42, which I'll share with you in a second. So basically the question was, hey, it's not really fair for people that invested a lot of money to get a better location in terms of poles or whatever. If you have a cellular data to provide it to the Helium, if you're at the top of a mountain. And I was like, it's not fair. People that invested $3,000-4,000 just for the location and getting that elevation, it's not fair that he did that investment and now he's going to get punished. And you will see that, you will hear the answer or watch the answer yourself. What they're saying is, hey, if you're not sending beacons, these are the ones we need to punish, because they're manipulating the system. So let me go to the video and let's hear the question. So this AMA was done by ANTHON and ENZI. He's part of ANTHON is the one who did the HIP42, and here's the answer.
That's one of the main questions I've seen floated around here. So long story short, if you have an optimal setup, this is not meant to come for you or kill your earnings or put a limit on rate of a setup that you can have or how much you can optimize your setup. It's just to make sure that those people with optimized setups are not doing anything that provides less utility to the network. And at the end of the day, this would only affect anyone who was intentionally or unintentionally, due to lack of proper setup, not providing the maximum value that they could from their location. What are some of the other concerns that you're seeing around this HIP when you talk to people in the HIP42 channel?
Yeah, that's the biggest one. No one is like, it was doctored or authored to attack the optimal setups that we see today. The other one is maybe not necessarily understanding the true intention of it. And I think a lot of times I see people kind of like have a moment where they realize, okay, after they look to see like, is my hotspot specifically going to get affected? And I think that's the thing as well, right? Because I see a lot of comments that are like, I believe this is going to happen to some people on the network. And the truth is, yes, this is going to affect some people. If everyone was concerned enough to see if this was going to affect them, then no one would be affected, right? Because once everyone realizes that this is the life of making sure you beacon and witness, everyone should be able to do the best that they can to meet that. I think those are the biggest one.
I would agree. That's the majority.
So I think this is the best answer. This is realistically from people that made this HIP, and they're telling you this. That's one thing. The second part that you should not worry about the HIP42, that it should take anywhere from 3 to 6 to maybe 9 months till we see it in reality. So that's another thing that you should be aware of. Now, maybe in 6 months or a year, once this comes out, you're going to see that your rewards will be dropping. You're like, these guys were lying to me. No. See, the problem is with the extreme scaling of deployed hotspots, our earnings will drop over time. That being said, we're at 97,000 or 79,000 hotspots per month, and probably going to go to 90,000. We're going to share the same pool of 1,600,000 or whatever it is, HNTs a month. And if we increase the number of hotspots and we're getting the same amount of rewards, guess what? Our rewards will drop. So that's something you should put in mind if you are planning to get into the Helium. Speed, getting your hotspot as fast as you can is your number one bet. And second of all will be looking after the light hotspot, which might be coming in maybe a month, 2 or 3. There's no official records about it yet. I'm going to leave a link of this AMA in the description for you to watch. It's very, very interesting. And what brought my attention to this AMA is actually the HIP44. The HIP44 might be, I think, more harsh than 42, because the HIP42 is, trying to control the overall kind of, repeaters and amplifiers, while the 44, they're trying to solve it by you getting less rewards once you get your consecutive witness. So the more with the second witness, you'll get less. The third witness, you get less. And the problem with 44, it's already placed. The code is there. Everything is there. So watch out to the 44. That's, I think, is a tough one. I'm going to do more research, and I'll probably join their channel and see where it goes, because according to this AMA, it's not so good. And let's see what are the difference, the HIP42 versus 44.
I'm going to move to a text question that was actually submitted by Helium moderator Paul M. What is the comparison between HIP42 and HIP44? For those who don't know, HIP44 is witness reward decay, which essentially would reduce the amount of rewards given for repeat witnessing within a certain time window. So what is the balance between HIP42 and 44? Whereas 44 is ready to go. Actually, all the code is written. It's already deployed to every miner, and it just needs a chain variable activation. HIP42 would need the code written, reviewed, deployed. Do these two HIPs coexist peacefully? Do they complement one another, or do they compete?
Personally, I feel that HIP44 would compete. It is, if you were to take a look at it, my HIP42 feels like it would implement a hard cap based on beacons, based on your performance. It's like, if you perform well, you will not, you most likely won't see, a clipping, right? Because it's trying to be performance based. Where HIP44, right, it's not going to limit the number of witnesses that you receive, but every consecutive witness will be worth less when it comes to what incentivizes people to, hunt for witnesses, to rewards. So if there is a soft cap, to the point where, okay, get all the witness receipts you want, but your rewards will diminish. No one's really going to put the extra effort in to try and hunt for those little bit of extra rewards. They're going to try and optimize under that soft limit, which that soft limit is a lot lower as what I remember reading 44 as than what my hard cap would be. It also would make people looking at the rewards, a lot harder to understand what's going on because of the reward units per witness. I'm sure you'd be able to do it if you folded over all 30 blocks of an epoch for everyone. But not that many people are willing to do that. It would be an alternative to the first function of HIP42. So if people did not like the hard cap, I think HIP44 would be an alternative that could be used for that function. But it doesn't necessarily. It would also, help against the anti-gaming because obviously, it'd be less rewards every consecutive witness, but it doesn't put a hard cap on it. So then they just keep sending more witnesses to it. And so at a certain point, it'll level out. But that's just my take on HIP44.
Right. So do you think that HIP42 is easier to think about conceptually for someone trying to optimize their setup? Maybe requires less complicated calculations and sort of second order effect postulating. Is that sort of a feature of HIP42 over 44?
I would agree with that. I think that's the other issue with being the author is I think it's relatively straightforward. I think it is once you finally grasp the mechanics behind it. It's definitely significantly easier than if you were to try to reverse or audit 44, effects on hotspot. But the intentions kind of line up. It's an alternative way of doing, HIP42. And that's another reason why I offered HIP42 is because HIP44 actually was suggested at the same time, and I didn't feel HIP44 was the answer. I felt that HIP42 was a better, compromise, provided the same kind of solution.
Well, it's always interesting when there are multiple solutions to similar problems within the sort of intellectual space of Helium. There's multiple things that cause any given one to succeed or fail, right? There is, on one hand, like the sheer merit or understandability of the HIP, but there is also the degree of championing that the author does. And I feel like you've been very responsive in engaging with HIP42, whereas, I haven't seen a lot around HIP44 for an obvious reason, which is that I believe it was written by Hashcode. Is that right? Am I wrong there?
The HIP itself was.
And he's very busy doing he's the chief product officer at Helium, for anyone who doesn't know him. So he's got a lot of other stuff on his plate and can't just really hang out in the HIP44 channel to champion it. So that's why you don't really see a lot of discussion there. It's the channel's basically dead.
The benefit to it is that the code's written. And it stems from the same situation of HIP40, HIP42, and HIP44 all came from the most recent gaming of, Clever Smoke Raven.
Okay.
And you're saying multiple answers to the same question. Which one's the best? Because he also chimed into earlier, Ashko did, in HIP42. There's a compromise between, how it affects the network, how it affects, the blockchain, itself. Is it going to be bloat? Is it going to be more computational needed? What kind of computation work is needed on the validator side to to facilitate such a feature, and is it something that's needed?
Yeah, those are all very important considerations, especially the performance consideration. Now that I think about it, it feels kind of wrong that we're temperature checking HIP42 but not 44. I don't know if that could be added in somehow, but it almost seems like if these two directly competing ideas are meant to be given an equal chance, that they should be presented at the same time in the same way. So maybe that's something that we can both discuss with the DY and see if they're up for that. Let's get some more questions in here. Fast, you've been waiting.
So there are two perspectives here. From an investor perspective, which is you and me, hotspot owners, we hate to lose rewards. That's the nature of the game. However, if you're going to look at it from a long vision, which is, you know what, let them use these HIPs to, try to get off the spoofing, get off this gaming, this manipulation for the long run. Because what we want to do is build a reputation, solid, robust, secured network. Because if that happens, more IoT companies will be using the network and therefore increasing our rewards through the data credits. So that needs to be considered as well. And to be fair enough, I think it's a thin line where you will be upset because you're going to lose your rewards. But also, I highly recommend that Helium Discord community and the people in the community to try to find a better way to evaluate and assess this whole thing. I mean, 460,000 hotspots, it's not small. That's a big network. And I believe that there's huge amount of potentials inside the Discord. I mean, unreal. But usually when it becomes this big, companies would rely on a third party, a consultant, that comes and evaluates and gives you ideas. Now, I'm sure people say, hey, well, Helium is different, Helium is whatever, but it's about data analyst. So data analyst, blockchain technology, and all that stuff, there's so many companies that can do this. That's one suggestion. Second suggestion, I think if there's a better coordinations with these HIPs to, evaluate the whole thing, I think that would be a good move. I personally do not like the HIP44, not for personal, preference, but because it just doesn't make sense that I have 50 witnesses and the spoofer has like 300. So I'm getting a DK model and he's getting a DK model. I still get the 50 and he gets whatever he's getting. I mean, he's not impacted really. Well, what if it's like someone that has a really good setup? How can you differentiate between the good one and the bad one? I don't think it's fair, but still, I don't mind testing it out and see how it will impact the network and the blockchain and all that stuff. Write down in the comments, tell me which one you hate more, the HIP44 or the HIP42 or both. My name is Eddie and I'll see you on the next video. Have a good night.